Hi, this is Carl the Cobra Frutch, and you're watching Lights Out.
On July 6th at the O2 Indigo, two boxing promoters will collide with one another to go head to head to become the #1 UK non-televised promoter in the country. Neilson Boxing and TM14 Promotions will fight for pride, for glory, and for bragging rights. John, Mark, welcome to the Gloves Are Off. We've never done a Gloves Are Off special before on Lights Out Boxing, so this is a first. So, guys, thank you very much for taking your time to join us today. We've got a cracking show to look forward to on July the 6th. This kind of concept we had a few weeks ago over in Saudi, but I'm absolutely buzzing the fact that you guys are doing this and doing it in the UK. It's going to be a great night of boxing. Both of your stables will go head to head, like I said, to crown the #1 non-televised promoter in boxing. Before we obviously talk about some of the fights and before you used to go back and forth, we'll start with you, Mark. Talk to me about the story of Neilson Boxing and where you think your stable is and your promotional company is right now in boxing.
Well, we've been around quite a while. I've grown up in boxing. My dad's an ex-professional heavyweight, fought Frank Bruno and Joe Bugner back in the early 80s, and I was an amateur boxer. My granddad was the treasurer of a local amateur club, so sort of boxing's in the blood for us. And we've been involved in it all our lives. And so we've sort of grown this, we used to do a lot of unlicensed, shall we say, back in the day, a bit like Frank Warren used to. That got quite busy, and then in the sort of mid 2016, I think we did our first pro show, and we've just sort of grown steadily ever since then, putting on more and more shows. We used to do 3-4 shows a year in the southwest, and then we sort of spread our wings, and now we've got to sort of like last year we did a dozen shows, London, Liverpool, all over the country, and just getting bigger and bigger and better. So. And as a managerial outfit, we now manage sort of like mid-30s boxers. Probably 90% of them are prospects, with most of the odd loss at best on their records. And been managing about 3 or 4 years, and that stable's going quite nicely. And then moving into this year, working with John and the team and the guys at TM14, take it even bigger and better.
John, I've known you now for quite a while. I've attended some of your press conferences. I've attended a couple of shows as well. Just talk to me about where you believe TM14 right now and how happy are you with how you guys have progressed over the last few years?
Yeah, good to talk to you, Faisal. Not as got as steep history as Mark there. Really good to hear about those stories about Frank Bruno and Joe Bugner. I've heard them before, but it's really nice to listen to. We've only been in the sport probably for about 3 years or so. We've been very active, similar to Mark last year. I think we had 12, 13 shows. We think we're in a good place, very similar to Neilson Boxing. I'll give Mark the credit. It was Mark that reached out first and said, how'd you fancy putting them in with each other and doing a show together? Similar to Frank and Eddie. I didn't need to read the message twice when he sent it. I jumped straight on it. We know what Mark and his team, Kyle and Jared, they're professional in how they operate. So doing a show with them, it's not just as simple as putting in fighters against fighters. Like everybody thinks you've got to do the show together, and you've all got your own opinions and your own ways of working. But we've all been really flexible around, if it works right for the show and what we're trying to achieve, then let's do it. But I'm looking forward to fight night when we give him a good lesson.
As I mentioned, we previously just had this sort of concept over in Saudi Arabia, and I've got to say it's probably one of the best things that's happened to boxing in quite a while. And one of the good things about the 5 versus 5 card was how competitive it was and how good the fights were. Mark, what was the main reason you reached out to John and TM14 to get this concept going in the UK?
Well, we want to keep growing and keep doing things better, and we want to do things a bit different, because I think it's fair to say that us and TM14, well, that was sound a bit blasé. I think we run London now. We're putting on the best shows, more shows between us than anyone else. There are other good promoters who are doing good shows. Clark over in Essex doing some fantastic work, and Steve Goodwin's putting on some decent shows. But I think between us, we're sort of like 13, 14, 15 shows in London this year. So we're between us sort of running London, and I thought. And it's not like with Frank and Eddie, they needed a Turks with a really big checkbook to bring everyone together. me and John knew each other. We, have good respect for each other. We've been to each other's events and have worked together in the past. So when I saw what Frank and Eddie were doing, I think I was on my sofa on a Sunday afternoon thinking, why don't we do it? We haven't got the money of the Saudis, of course, which would be very nice. And we're available if anyone's watching. But I thought, why don't we do it ourselves? So I reached out to John, and like he said earlier, he didn't have to think very hard about it. Yeah, great idea. So we said, what about, we've got our stable of boxers. John's got his big stable of boxers, and we've got people we both work with separately. So we were doing our own shows, sometimes a week apart, fighting for the same sort of crowds and in the same venues. And it just makes sense. Why don't we combine forces a little bit, work together, put on this, why don't we do what Frank and Eddie do and do like a 50-50 show? And it was like, that's a great idea. Why not? And so we reached out, said, yeah, great, let's catch up for a coffee. And we sat around a table, didn't we, John? And I sort of got a list out, right. I think John sort of said, right, let's go through weight by weight and see what you think, and we'll see what we think. And we just sat there and started to go through all the weights. John would say, right, welterweight, who you got? We'd give our sort of 3-4. He'd come up with 3-4. And it was like, oh, that's a great fight. Oh, that's a great fight. That's a great fight. And then it was, he'd say, well, he'd only do it if it's for a title. Make a quick call to the board, to the teams. Yeah, we could get that for a title. That fight's on. Oh, yeah, brilliant. And it just went like that. We were just like kids in a sweet shop thinking, if you can put these dream fights on in the, I'd say we're the biggest non-televised promoters out there working together. This show for sure is going to be the biggest one, not on TV. Yeah, I said the other shows are good, but the numbers that we're going to get in the Indigo is going to be far in excess of any non-televised show out there. I think non-televised, we're live on TalkSport and Fight Zone, but the main broadcasters. So it came about like that really. An idea sat on the sofa on a Sunday afternoon, let's do something a bit different. And John was like, yeah, let's go for it. And as I said, we didn't need a Turk to bring two enemies together. We had like a bit of a mutual respect. Yeah, we're competitors. Yeah, we both want to win, but we work together and have respect for each other. That doesn't mean I'm not going to win on the day, of course, but that's a different story, John. And John will have a different view to that, of course.
John, obviously speaking to Mark, he'd mentioned about his background in boxing and his family's history. Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren have got a massive background and a lot of history in boxing. Is it fair to say that you're sort of like the new kid on the block that's trying to make his way and get his foot through the door and perhaps maybe to looking to become the #1 promoter at some point in the country?
Absolutely. I think we all have that ambition. I know Mark does. I know that people that he's mentioned already, the smaller hall circuit, we all want the big contract, or we all want the best shows. I'm definitely one of the newer ones. We're really pleased with our trajectory, if that's the right phrase, and who we work with, etc. Mark's just mentioned we tend not to manage as many fighters. We don't really want to go down that route. We like to work with everybody else and put on the best shows so we can go and pick the best fights and the best fighters on there, that we can do that. So yeah, if that answers your question, and hopefully this will be a start, this next step up we've got, and we've managed to get good people around us. I will drop some bits in. We've secured Ladbrokes as our #1 sponsor. They're one of the biggest bookmakers in the world, compared to a lot of sponsors, and what they provide for us is totally different. It'll be streamed out live on all in their website on the night. Dennis Hobson, give him a shout. He's actually funding the streaming, so it's going live on Fight Zone. It's going live on TalkSport. That's because of Dennis is supporting us there. Dennis is actually getting a belt made as well for me to take home on the night when I beat Mark. So that'll be my first belt that we get. But yeah, we're surrounding ourselves with a lot of good people, because as you grow, like Mark's just mentioned, you can't sometimes just do it on your own. And like Mark mentioned, not having a dig at Eddie or Frank, but when you have got a blank checkbook from Turkey Al Sheikh, essentially you can go and make whatever fights you want. We've still got to make the fund viable. Make the show viable. We got to find the funds to do that. The O2 show is nigh on double the amount, pretty much what it would cost at York Hall, and York Hall isn't cheap. So we've sort of like club resources together as well as our brains. And I've sat there sometimes with Mark and his team and I've gone, oh, I didn't do that. That's a brilliant idea. And that's good about learning, because some people sort of like think there's only one way of working and my way is the right way. And there's been quite a few things where even if I was on my own on the next show, I'd nick what they do. I'd like to think that we've probably given 1 or 2 ideas as well.
For sure.
One of the beauties about this type of concept is that you both want to win, and I'm pretty sure whichever one leaves the O2 that night as the loser, no disrespect, will obviously feel slightly hurt and perhaps maybe have their pride hurt. But that's the whole point of having a concept like this. And looking at some of the fights, Jordan Reynolds versus Joel Bartel, Marley Mason versus Aaron Prosper, Alfie Winter versus Hamza Butt. There's a number of fights really, really to look forward to. Mark, what makes you so confident that you've got the number one team and that you feel as if you're going to be the guy that leaves with that shiny belt and as the number one promoter in this concept?
No, I feel like it's a bit political, really, this with us and John, because we've got the whole fight card and we're working out who's on what side. And most of the boxers on our individual teams, we've got individual relationships with, which is why they've ended up on our team. And I'm just, some of these that we've put in, some of these fights that have been made, I'm sort of sat there thinking, yeah, John's agreed to that. That's mine all day long. Great. And he's probably thinking the same. He's thinking, yeah, Mark says, yeah, no problem. We're both confident. We're both winners. But I'm looking at my team, my lineup, and I'm just like, no doubt. Some of them are cracking 50-50s and tough to call. Some of them, John's sort of thinking, yeah, you've got that all day long. I'm like, no, you haven't. Oh, my guy's got your guy's number. This is great. It's and the reception that we've had from the gyms, from the boxers, the fight fans, because the pre-ticket orders says it all. Cards stacked for 50-50s. And, what's going to be best? We've got a little side bet between Neilson Boxing and TM14, and there's like £1,000 check to the charity of the choice. So, I want to know which charity that I'll be giving that £1,000 check to. So, everyone wins apart from TM14.
John, I look at your side of your team. You've made some big 50-50 calls, captaining, giving the captaincy to Joel Bartel, a guy who I've interviewed before. Aaron Prosper, putting him in with Marley Mason. Marley Mason was previously on one of your shows as well. Hamza Butt in a real 50-50 with Alfie Winter. Is it fair to say that perhaps maybe you're the promoter in this that's taking more risk than Mark?
I think maybe when you look at it, one or two people have said to me that they think Mark would be a favourite. Now, I'm also a bookmaker in my day job. So if you were going to run a book for those that have a bet, I'm being told that maybe he would be a favourite. I think it's been very hard because, like Mark just mentioned, we've both connected with a lot of these fighters. Some of these fighters have been on Mark's show and mine and ours and Mark's. So when you're kind of doing the show, it was a bit like, well, who's fighting for who? I believe that the team we've got there will win it. I think Joel Bartel, I've made him captain. Joel's been on all my shows. We're proud of what Joel's achieved and that we've been part of the journey, as we have with a number of others. It's a real 50-50 fight, and the winner of that fight goes on to big things. I think they'll be on the cusp of the top 10 middleweight. And I was going through with Kyle Neilson yesterday, Mark's nephew. I think, if you read through the names in the top 10 of middleweight, you got Eubank Jr., Hamza Shiraz, Liam Smith, Tyler Denny, Kieran Conway, Denzel Bentley, Felix Cash, them kind of names, they're going to be near that mix. So it felt right to back Joel there because he's our main man. But there's some great other fights on there, as you said. I think the biggest thing for me, when I look down at it, there's about 7 fights on there. And when I say 50-50, some promoters and some people who interview, they go, they're 50-50 fights, when they're not. These are cracking 50-50 fights. Even if you want to pick another one there, like Lewis Roberts against Ben Lilly, that's a rematch. Lewis is on their team and he's their fighter from Swindon, but he won the first time 96-94. That was in Swindon. This is in London. There's 2 title belts on the line. That was close the first time. You mentioned Aaron and Marley. Marley's a great crowd pleaser, comes for a ruck, had a draw with Jeff Afori. We know where Jeff's at, and then lost a close fight against Louis O'Doherty and probably one of the fights of the year, if not the fight of the year so far. Aaron Prosper's a class act. He come up short last time at Southern Area, but he's stepping down in weight at a weight that hopefully might suit him. And hopefully if he brings that power down, it makes it a cracker. I could sit here and go through every fight. That's probably your job, Faisal, when you won't want to go through all of them, but it really is a good show. And hopefully the fans get what we're trying to achieve. When Mark reached out and we had that meeting, he was right. I think you said like kids in a sweet shop. It was one of the best days I've had in boxing because I felt like I had this little shopping list. I felt like I was playing Football Manager or something like that, where I was like, oh, I've got access to these fighters here that are Mark's and Mark's connections. And we actually just literally sat there and went, let's try and make that, let's make that. Yeah. And ultimately the fans are going to get what they want from that because the tickets have sold well. And a lot of these tickets, they're mainly sold by fighters to their friends and family, as they always are on a small hall. But actually, if I was Ollie Edwards, who I pick here, I'm looking at the list. If I was him, I'd be thinking, right, I'm fighting at the O2, his friends and family. I'm going to want to come to that. It's a much better venue and show. Equally, the rest of the card, I'm getting real good value for money. And we're going to announce. I think I'll let it drop now. Mark won't mind, but tomorrow we're going to announce as well. I think it's tomorrow, Mark. We've got a poster ready for the football as well, haven't we? So if England win tonight, and let's hope they do, because they're due to play Slovenia and top the group, if they go through the last 16, the quarterfinals will be on the same night. But the O2 have agreed that we're going to have a football/boxing event. So all the screens will be in there. So everybody who's coming along is going to get double bubble. You know, if you went to a box park at Wembley or Croydon, you pay 25 quid a ticket or whatever, you're potentially going to be sat with 2,000 fans. I might have to keep all the Millwall boys over there and all the West Ham boys over there, but we'll let security worry about that. But in terms of having a great night, you're going to potentially have an England quarter-final sandwiched in between what we would call one of the best cards you'll ever see at this level.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you touched on it there. The main event, Jordan Meadows, Joe Bartel, that's just what the whole card is like. Jordan Meadows, undefeated 7-0, won everything, highly decorated amateur, and Joe Bartel 6-0, who's meteoric rise. His how active he is in a short space of time. Everyone is talking about him. Everyone knows who Jordan Meadows is. This big, extensive amateur career, and Joe Bartel was the new kid on the block, but everyone's talking about him, and that's. 7-0 versus a 6-0, and for an English and Commonwealth eliminated. And that's what the card's like, stacked all the way through. We all think me and John think we know who we're winning on those fights, but the fight fans are going to win for sure, because those kind of fights, and it's stacked for them. And like I said, Lewis Roberts, Ben Lilly, there's only a couple of points in on his home show. I think so we know it's stacked for these 50-50s. So great fight, great fights. The fans are going to love it. I'm actually pinching myself. Being involved in a show of this size, it's just bigger and better. Great to be working with John and his team. But I think it's just the first of many. I think, but from the feedback we've got and the responses that we've had.
Well, listen, fingers crossed we don't get West Ham fans and Millwall fans mixing with each other on the night, because I'm pretty sure there's enough boxing and keeping us entertained, and hopefully in England win and that season through to the semi-finals or the European Championships. You guys mentioned that Turki Al Sheikh has given an open checkbook to many promoters in boxing. I look at this show and I feel that this is more than just an open checkbook. This means a lot more to you guys, because you guys don't have the DAZN money and the TNT Sports money. So this is a show between two promoters that just want to give fans a good night of boxing. Mark, what would this mean to you if you walk out victorious on the night?
Well, I'm used to winning, so this would just be another win for me. So I no doubt I want to keep winning, keep getting better. I mean, we don't have the money of Turk, but they're like the Premiership, the Champions League. But you go down to the Championship and First Division in football, there's some cracking. We're like that. We're not the Champions League, we're not the Premiership, but we're the top of the Championship. Some sort of cracking sort of fights here. So we're going to win, but it's like a test event's the wrong probably term to use, because we're both established promoters now. I know John's saying new kid on the block, but God, he's put on a lot of shows and some really good shows. So he seems like a veteran, even though it's not on the time spent on him. But what will it mean to me? Well, it mean everything, because I want to win. I mean, we say it with a bit of a smile on our face, and it's but I think just putting on a great show full of 50-50s that's successful, and getting it on TalkSport, getting it on Fight Zone, is a dream for us. And it's the next stepping stone. I mean, we're working with the TM14 guys for more and more shows throughout the year. And I think we're going to run this back again at some stage in the future for sure.
John, the new kid on the block, how are you going to react if you win on the 6th of July and walk out victorious with your stable? And where does that take you in the future?
Looks like he's frozen it looks like he's frozen. Is he back? Are you back, John?
I think I'm back. I was trying to deliberately freeze so I couldn't hear you talk about winning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, and I was talking about winning. You're absolutely right to block out that.
I did catch most of it. And if you're asking me the same, Faisal, yeah, look, the winning is massive. I'm a competitive guy, just like Mark. Yeah, I know he's being a bit funny there when he says he's used to winning, but he is used to winning. He's a successful businessman. He's put on great shows in his time, so he will expect to turn up and win. No different from us as well. But ultimately, and I know it might sound a bit cliche, the fans definitely win on the night. You know, the reason you're reaching out and asking to do a gloves are off. Whenever would you have thought, Faisal, that you would do a gloves are off on 2 smaller hall promoters? You know, that's done on the big ones. We didn't ask you, you asked us, because you know the card is good, you know that the venue's good, you know that everything on the night should be really good. So, but yeah, we expect to win, and I will buy him a pint after to commiserate him while he can watch me win my shiny new belt.
Right, at this point, Johnny Nelson would usually ask if you guys want to shake hands, but because this is getting done via Zoom, Mark, John, I would like you guys to leave a final message to each other. Mark, let's start with you, mate. What's your final message to John and
Listen, you know, even if we were there in person, there wouldn't be any tables being tipped over or glasses of water, like John sort of touched on earlier, been thrown anywhere. It's respectful and it's good fun, but we're winners at the end of the day. And if you know, John's a better man who works in the bookies, so I'm sure everyone's money's going to be on us as the favourites. I'm looking at the lineup, some cracking fights, some mouthwatering action. Fight fans are going to win. So Team Neilson boxing for sure.
John, if you're still there, what's your final message to Mark Neilson and Neilson boxing, mate? John, can you hear me?
I can. I'm sorry. It looks like we're getting to the end of the call, which seems good. I don't know why I'm losing connectivity.
Okay, John, what's your final message to Mark Neilson and Neilson boxing for the show on the July 6th at the O2 Indigo?
The only message is that you're going to lose, mate. Simple as that.
Right, John, Mark, thank you very much for your time. Guys, if you haven't, please make sure you check out TM14 and Neilson Boxing on social media. We're going to put their links below in the description. Make sure you purchase a ticket for what promises to be a great night of boxing between 2 local promoters battling it out at the O2 Indigo. Mark, John, thank you very much for your time. We look forward to catching up with you next week at Fight Week. And thank you very much for talking to Lights Out.
Pleasure.
Cheers, guys. All the best, Faisal. Cheers, Mark.
Cheers, guys.